Hi, friends. Welcome to Law Chat with Girja. My name is Girja Bhargav Patel. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I am a podcaster. I am an educator. I am a businesswoman. I am an entrepreneur, and I'm a lawyer. I truly believe in the power of mentorship through storytelling, and that's what Law Chat is all about. So whether you are in 6 months or 10 years of business experience, we can all learn from each other's experiences because we face the same challenges and we have the victories and we have mistakes that we're all making. So why not lean into them and know that we're going to be fine and we're going to be okay and we're going to be inspired. And of course, this is Law Chat with Girja, so we will be talking about some law at some point during the conversation. And if you love what you hear today, which I know you will, then subscribe to Law Chat with Girja and share the love. So grab your coffee, sparkling water, or wine, and let's dive in to the next inspiring mentorship session. Hi, friends. Welcome to Law Chat. Is time your best friend or your worst enemy? And with the time switch that's happened recently, I don't know what I'm feeling these days. I feel like the days have become really long, even though I love that extra hour. Or are you a rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, chasing time all the time? Because I feel like I'm doing that too. My guest today, I had the wonderful opportunity of meeting at a conference over the summer, and she instantaneously became somebody with so much wisdom, but with such beautiful energy and liveliness. Dearmon Kornick. And welcome to Law Chat with Girja. She is a time management coach, and she knows what she is talking about because not only is she an expert in her field, but she's an expert for all the news shows like today on one. And she's also working in a company that is now helping with time management. So welcome, Anna, to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was such a kind introduction. I am so thrilled to be here.
Oh, and I remember when we met over the summer at the Creative at Heart conference, I was lucky enough to be in the same group with you at like in our breakout groups. And it was so nice. You know, it was like the things that we were talking about, such unexpected conversations were happening.
Oh, I know. Panel group too legit to quit. That was such an amazing, I've never been to a conference that has had that type of panel group breakout session where, you know, you listen in the sessions and you take things in, but then having those small groups with other business owners who are in similar types of businesses, that it was just so helpful. It was so great.
There is a whole nother energy when you surround yourself with like-minded people, not necessarily like-minded in the sense of, because there were definitely people who had very diverse thought processes in the group as well, but just with the same like growth mindset or the same kind of like entrepreneurial space and your coaching strategies and you know, things like that. And it was just so wonderful because it's so much beautiful energy that's brought to the table. Inspiration is brought to the table also, but then also like, I feel like we shared a lot of diverse thoughts also. And I remember when you shared your opinions and your perspectives, I really appreciated them a lot, actually. And, you know, we were talking about some pretty sticky subjects such as and integration, exclusivity, and all those things. And sometimes they got a little uncomfortable.
It did, but it's that scratchiness when the growth happens, right?
Exactly. And it was lovely because you truly saw into people also at that time. You really and so you shined, and I was really appreciative of that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, but we're here to discuss your time management amazing skills because we all need them. I mean, I sometimes feel like I am, you know, the rabbit with the clock, just running around during the holiday season. So how did you get into the time management? Because this is a pretty niche area you're in right now. So how did that happen? Where did it all start from?
Oh my goodness. So I guess I've got to take you all the way back to the very beginning of my career because that's when it really kicked off. So I started my career click-clacking around in high heels and pencil skirts in the marble halls of Congress as the scheduler to a United States congressman. So right out of school, I was managing one of the most hectic schedules in the country. And not only was it already a very hectic schedule, he was actually the first Vietnamese congressman elected to Congress in the history of Congress. So it was a very historic time. It was very exciting to be on his team and to be supporting him. And as a result, I was fielding hundreds of requests each day for his time, meeting requests from constituents back in the district, meeting requests from lobbyists down on K Street, requests from people from all over the country who were just interested in meeting with him and talking with him, and requests from people from other countries because he was in such a high profile role, not to mention speaking requests and dinner invitations and reception invites and committee schedules. Oh, and there's votes too, because that's the whole reason why we're there is to vote and pass the laws. And so very early
that, like normal life, like
right. He also had two young children. He was married, had two young children who lived back in New Orleans, and there was a lot on his plate, and it was my role as scheduler to do nothing but manage his calendar. Yeah. And as you can imagine, I spent what felt like 10 to 12 hour days parked in front of an Outlook calendar, constantly arranging and rearranging and responding to invitations. And so I very early on had to pick up that baptism by fire, those time management skills, managing not just the congressman's schedule, but me as a young professional trying to understand how to best manage my time, manage my energy, because I wanted to have a life outside of work too. And so after some time working on Capitol Hill, while I loved the experience, it turns out you can't readily get boiled crawfish or etouffee or jambalaya anywhere, anytime in DC. And I'm a Louisiana native. I'm a Louisiana girl. I missed home. I missed being able to see my family and see my grandmother without buying a plane ticket and planning a whole weekend to come home. And so I moved back to Louisiana, where I took my Hill experience and kicked off about a decade-long career in the 24/7 world of public affairs and crisis communications. So you name it, oil spills, plant explosions, hurricanes, droughts, floods, nonprofit embezzlement schemes, universities on the brink of financial collapse, you name it. And I've probably escorted someone down a freight elevator and into a back alleyway to avoid TV cameras waiting outside.
Oh my gosh. So you were like that scandal show.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Olivia Pope with the fancy wine glasses. So this is where I have to admit that I've never actually watched that show. I think it might give me too much anxiety to relive that stage in my life, but it was.
I watched that show when it first came out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be that person. Like, so amazing.
So you think. But I mean, yeah, if there was a crisis to be solved, I was there for my clients. If there was chaos to be put into order, I was there for my clients.
So and fantastic. What an experience though.
Absolutely. It was certainly an experience that I'm grateful for because of the way that it has shaped the rest of my life. I really found that I had this ability to work under pressure, to almost have a sense of calm wash over me when others were frantic. Mm-hmm. And I could begin to put the pieces together and create a strategy out of the chaos. But as you can imagine, that 24/7 way of life can really begin to take a toll on you, especially when you're serving clients at all hours of the day and night. I found myself missing things that were really important to me. Right. I was missing friends' baby showers. I missed really important family events, and I was stepping out of dinners, and just I wasn't living the life that
you weren't present.
Envisioned. No, I wasn't. I was constantly being pulled in. And after one too many mornings spent crying in the stairwell on the way up to my windowless office, I decided that something had to change, something had to give. And so I'll never forget the day that I was actually sitting in my little windowless office that I filed for my LLC. I didn't know what I was going to do with it at the time, but I had it. I filed my LLC, ADK Strategies, whatever that was going to be someday.
Oh my gosh. Pause here for a second. I hate to interrupt this awesome conversation, but I have to stop and talk with you about the number one thing I'm asked about by entrepreneurs: contracts. They're vital to any business relationship and to protect your business. But I also know that entrepreneurs, especially when you're starting up, money is tight. But I would never want you to compromise on a strong legal foundation. So enter yourcontractbuddy.com, a website created by me with contract templates created and drafted by me and fellow industry partners. They're ready to use and easy to plug in immediately. And they are not restricted to any specific state. So yourcontractbuddy.com is sponsoring this episode, and you and your listener can get 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. Yes, you heard me right. 10% off right now with code LAWCHAT. And now back to our awesome conversation. First of all, I love that. And I love that it was also one of those moments that a lot of us have had.
Oh, yeah.
Pushed to a corner. We don't know what to do, but we do know one thing that we need to do. And that's the thing that's been looming in our heart. And we just haven't done it yet. And the courage to do that is almost, there's just no other choice. And so it becomes inevitable. And I love that you made your LLC because it speaks volumes about what a small action like that can do. One, it makes you feel like, okay, I'm legit. I'm starting something. This is official. Number two, it helps you break away from whatever you're trying to break away, because now you feel like, I just started an LLC. I can. I'm starting a business. And while it might seem very romantic in the thought, but the reality is that that's the impact that the consequence of starting an LLC can have, especially when you're in that situation where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. I need something. And I'm sure this was sitting in your heart anyways, that you need to start something else. You need to start something else.
Exactly. I knew that there had to be a way that I could take that time management experience that I had gotten so early in my career on Capitol Hill with this ability that I had cultivated to create order out of crisis, and somehow combined that into a way to help other people either dig themselves out of that dark place that I had found myself in, or avoid it altogether. And so there was some trial and error. I tried different things, and I'll never forget the day that I said out loud, I am a time management coach. I am going to be a time management coach. I am a time management coach. I had no clients. I had no podcast. I had none of that, but I made the decision. And that's when I started sharing and saying, I'm a time management coach. This is how I help people, even though I had never helped anyone before. And so now I'm a time management coach, and I help busy people stop feeling overwhelmed and start spending time on what matters most. I'm the host of It's About Time, a podcast sharing stories and strategies to inspire better work-life balance. And very recently, I accepted the role of head of community at an amazing company called Clockwise. Clockwise is a smart calendar assistant that helps you spend time on what matters. Literally, that is their mission, to help you spend time on what matters by learning your calendar and creating blocks of focus in your day. So I've got to say that when I look back on the Anna who opened up the laptop and filed the LLC with no idea what was going to happen next, I'm so proud that I took that leap and went to the Louisiana Secretary of State website and figured it out and made it happen, because look what's happened. And now I've had the honor and the privilege of serving so many business owners and professionals as they want to spend time on what matters most.
That is so beautiful. It's just, I'm just listening and I'm soaking it all in, because it's truly the power of saying something, even if you're not that yet. But that is what you envision. it's so powerful. Like some people say, oh, we're putting it out in the universe. Some people say, I'm living it now as if I've been given it today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there is power to that. There is absolute, it's not like you're living in some la la land. Of course,
Right.
reality, but there is so much command in when you say, I am a XYZ, I am a dot, 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 whatever that is today, whatever that might be in the next year, in the next 5 years that you see yourself, say it. Because there was this one thing that I read, or a lot of people do talk about this. They're like, if you envision yourself to be something in the next 5 years, start being that person today.
Yeah.
So you can actually be that person in 5 years.
Yeah.
So you can't just overnight become that person.
Yeah.
But definitely if you start adopting habits and thought processes and mindsets that will help you become that person,
yeah,
then do it. And I mean, the first thing is to call yourself what you envision yourself to be.
Right. Exactly. It reminds me of the word expert, and a few years ago, it hit me that there is no committee walking around watching people waiting to designate you an expert. Mm-hmm. And the moment that I realized, oh, no one is going to come and tell me, Anna, you're an expert now. That means you get to do X, Y, and Z. That empowered me to, I get to decide when I want to step into the expert role. I get to decide what I want to learn, read, and do in order to, like, if I want to be an expert, I get to make that decision. And I get to work toward that, to work toward what that means, because no one is going to knock on my door and award me a certificate or a trophy for being an expert. And then I will know. There is no magical threshold you walk over. You do what you want to do.
You do it. Yeah. Actions are what determines the expertise, right? Like,
exactly.
You can just say I'm an expert, but if there's no experience and there's no action towards whatever you're claiming to be, you're not an expert. You're right. Then you just become somebody who's living in some fantasy world.
Right.
There needs to be action backing up the words.
Yeah. A friend of mine sent me an Instagram post that I saved and loved because it said, you don't become an expert and then do the thing. Doing the thing is what makes you an expert.
Yeah, exactly. Love that. Love that. That's so true. I just love it because it's what you did is what so many other people are wanting to do, are thinking about doing, or have done also. And it's not uncommon, but at the same time, it's not easy to do either. It takes courage, it takes grit, it takes determination. And, after so many years, that's what you're doing. You haven't just said it and then been like, okay, we'll figure this out. I mean, just the fact that you were on the news channel this morning, I saw you on your Instagram stories, and you're talking about the daylight savings time and all that stuff. Like that makes you an expert. That makes you somebody that people turn to as an authority in this area of time management. And I think that's just so brilliant.
It's a lot of fun too.
I bet. So I know that with time management, that's something that a lot of us struggle with, especially when we have so many more things on our table, such as parenthood or, working, like having a business and a full-time job, or, just trying to juggle, especially with the holidays coming in and then your personal life. And so what are some tangible tips that you can give to the listeners out there on how to navigate in this crazy time?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's always the question. Where do we start? Right. And when you have so many things on your plate, it can feel like you're being pulled in a million directions, like you have too many tabs open on your laptop, in your brain, and you're just trying to get through the day and make it all happen. So I like to go all the way back to the beginning. And I wholeheartedly believe that time management does not start on the pages of your calendar. Time management begins with heart management, because until you get crystal clear on what matters most to you, you can't begin to effectively schedule your time. You can't effectively begin to, rearrange things on your calendar. And so whenever you're heading into an especially busy season, that is prime time to pause for a moment. Even when you feel like, oh, I don't have time to pause for a moment, even if it's just 5 minutes in your car when you're waiting in the carpool line, and really reconnect for a second with, okay, what does matter most to me right now? What matters most to me going into this busy holiday season, for example? It can be very easy to get caught up in saying yes to all the invitations and yes to all of the volunteering and the, signing up for things for your kids' parties and buying this gift and going to this event and this tradition and that tradition. And do we do elf on the shelf or do we move something else around? What is it? Stop for a second and reconnect with what matters most to you and what you want to get out of your holiday season or what you want to get out of your time, and let that be your guide first for what you say yes to and how you want to spend your time. Because most often when we feel burned out, when we feel like we're being pulled in a million different directions, it's because our calendars have become full of other people's priorities instead of our own. And
I love that. Can we say that again? That is so true.
Yeah, so often when we find that we're burned out or pulled in a million different directions, it's because our calendars are full of other people's priorities, because we've said yes to things in order to maybe be a people pleaser, or because we're afraid of saying no, or because we don't want to let someone else down. But in the process, we've completely crowded out any opportunity for us to do what we want to do and for us to check in with what matters most. I know it sounds cheesy, but one of the best time management tools is actually knowing your core values. Because when you know those core values, when you know those core values, you've got that test, you've got that North Star, and you can ask yourself, does this opportunity to put something else on my calendar, does this mesh with my core values? Is this what I'm prioritizing in this season? And, when you have that as your guide, it makes decision-making on how you spend your time a whole lot easier.
Gosh, I cannot emphasize that enough. I have actually been talking a lot about values the last many few episodes. And really, it's funny because every single guest that I've had has talked about values, and it's not been like, I have been like, what are your values? But it's been more very organically it's popped up, because I feel like old school success is measured by how much time you're putting into work, how much money you're making at the end of the day. And well, money is very important. I absolutely 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the only metric of success.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like now it's, people are really talking about the values and the core values. And I just did a core value mastermind thing back in springtime, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. It was just one of those things that, you don't realize also how your core values pop up, and they show up, and they show up in a way where sometimes your answers are so radical and you're just like, what just happened? Like, why did I just do that? Or why am I feeling so much friction right now?
Friction. Oh, yeah.
And so I love that you actually talked about that, because honestly, like, we sometimes, when I'm setting up my calendar for the week also, a lot of times we focus on what work do I have to finish?
Yeah.
Rather than focusing on what are some other things that make me happy? What are some of the things that bring joy? What are the things that are also important to my life outside of work? And let me fill my schedule in with that, and then fill in the work part as well.
Yes,
and I love that you said that, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to do the stuff that brings us free joy without the metric of work or business, whatever. And, it's so important that we do that.
Yeah. Instead of filling our weeks, filling our days with the things that are on fire and the things that are urgent and the things that we have to finish, so often we'll say, okay, if I have any time left over, then maybe I'll schedule a date night with my husband. Well, that time left over is never just going to show up. You have to be proactive about that. I really like to subscribe to the visual prioritization system, which sounds really technical, but it's not, of thinking about your priorities and thinking about the things on your to-do list as if they are boulders, big rocks, and pebbles. And so this is something that, if you're listening, this is something that you can take with you from this episode. Boulders are those things in your life that really reflect your core values. They are very often, they're important, but they're not urgent. And so most of the time in our day-to-day life, we tend to leave our leftover time for these boulder activities. Things like journaling, things like self-care. A lot of times, a consistent workout schedule, meal prep sometimes can be considered a boulder. That calling your grandmother on a weekly basis, cultivating a relationship, thinking about what those core values are that you have, how they translate into real life activities. Labeling those as a boulder. Boulders are big, giant. You can push on them all that you want and they're not going to move. You put those into your calendar first. You hold space for those first. With the space that's left, that's where you begin dropping in those big rocks. And big rocks are the things on your to-do list that move the needle in your life and work. This is your genius zone work. These are those things like the deadline for your project, completing the report, prepping for the sales call, doing the sales call. These are those things that we typically fill our entire schedule with, is nothing but big rocks. And then we have no time left over for those important boulders that enable us to show up as our best selves. And so the third category is pebbles. And pebbles are all of those little bitty things that have the ability to take over our entire day because they're small. We feel like we're being productive. We feel like we're doing busy work. And so it's, checking email, it's scrolling Instagram, it's scheduling a dentist appointment. It's picking up dry cleaning, all of those little bitty things that sure, yes, they're marginally important but they're not typically urgent. But those are the things that we tend to spend most of our time doing because we're like, okay, I'm going to do these 17 quick things. And then we reach the end of the day and we're like, oh, wait, I didn't do anything of value today. All I did was these little bitty tasks. And so my challenge to you would be that next time you're putting together a to-do list, beside each item on your to-do list, if it's a boulder for you, write a big B, a big uppercase B, and really call that out as a boulder. If it's a big rock, if it's something that's deadline oriented, like this podcast recording right now, like this is a big rock for me, put a BR next to it. And then for everything else that's a little bitty pebble, write a lowercase p next to it. And challenge yourself to save those pebbles for later and knock out the boulders and the big rocks first.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm like going to run with this. Oh gosh, this was such great advice because a lot of times you're right, we're filling it in. And then, I have my maybe 2 things I want to do in a day. Like these are the things that I want to do. Sometimes it might be a big rock. Boulders. The boulders in my life are literally my core value stuff, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I ignore or I put to the back burner and, things that you definitely need to not do that. And so this is wonderful. This absolutely gives so much more clarity on the big to-do list or, it's just when I like to zoom out at least a week, if not 2 out sometimes, depending on the season. And, so this is wonderful. I'm absolutely going to be employing this.
Yeah, give it a try. And, boulders don't have to look like things that are just work related too. I have a boulder on my calendar every day called bedtime stories. And that is something that is very, very important to me. And so I hold space on my calendar with an appointment every day that says bedtime stories. And so if I get a speaking request or an opportunity to record a podcast or even a late meeting request that conflicts with bedtime stories, I ask myself the question, okay, do I want to move this boulder for this opportunity? And it really becomes such a great decision-making tool when you have that space held for it and you're able to ask yourself, okay, do I want to move this boulder for this opportunity? And most of the time, the answer is no.
Yeah. And I'm going to add on to this, this is a great exercise to do, but I also know that sometimes it can be tough because it's hard to be committed to those boulders. It's hard to be committed when you see the shiny objects in front of you at times.
The shiny things.
And I encourage you to be committed because I know, and I say it from experience, that there were times where I felt like I wasn't as committed. And there's still times that I'm not as committed to maybe, the daily walk outside or things like that. But when you are committed, you also take yourself far more seriously with your schedule, and you give your schedule that respect that it deserves rather than being flippant with what's happening. And then the flippancy is what causes, again, friction. It causes stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah. And I mean, I think you're right. Like the boulders start becoming your North Star. It starts becoming something that you're actually saying, well, is this, and you're right. Like those become non-negotiables also eventually over time, if they're not already. And so what great advice. So tell me though, like, was this something that was always very in you naturally, or is this something that you actually worked on to become more committed and dedicated and, like razor focused on the scheduling?
Oh, that is such a great question, because so many times people come to me and they say, Anna, I'm just not good at time management. It's just not natural. It's not a part of who I am. And people tend to assume that because I help others with time management, that I've always been this innately great time manager. And it's true. When I was in college, I can still picture the time blocked schedules that I would create for myself each week, because I was involved in a million different student organizations. I was a member of the Student Senate. I was in all these different organizations, and I had an internship and all of these things. And so the only way that I could survive and get from meeting to meeting was with a color coded, color blocked schedule. But you might be surprised to know that I was the late friend in my group of friends for a very long time. I was the person that never got anywhere on time. I was the joke among my friends until I transitioned from being the joke to the annoying person. I don't know how else to say it, but like it started to become a problem. And I didn't have it together. And one of my friends actually talked to me about it and, confronted me very kindly and just said, hey, Anna, what's up? Because you are always late and it feels like you are not being respectful of our time. And we would really like to, to talk to you about it. And, having someone approach me like that in a very, kind way was a light bulb moment for me that, helped me kind of turn a corner to really looking at what I was doing to prep, how I was managing my own calendar, how I was being realistic with my time. That led me to dive into learning about, procrastination and the different types of late people, which is something that is just incredibly fascinating to me, all the different reasons that make us late. And then, I'll tell you that when I was working in crisis communication world, I did not have a good system for managing a to-do list. Everything was always so reactive. Everything was reactive. Very little was proactive because we were constantly in crisis mode. And so I had a sort of a running to-do list, but no true prioritization or like task management system. All of that I had to learn. All of that I learned by diving into books. I like to say, like, I've read all of the books now, so you don't have to, but just doing tons of reading and lots of experimentation and trying things and seeing what works. And, one thing that's been really powerful is I became a Myers-Briggs type indicator certified practitioner. So I've learned all about personality preferences and how those play into how you are most productive and how you can manage your time. And that's a little bit of a long-winded way of saying there are certain things that, yes, were innate, but for the most part, I've had to learn this and try things and make mistakes and experiment and find out what works best for me. Mm-hmm. And, time management really is, it does have to be a bit of a trial and error, because you can't copy and paste what works well from one person to another person, because our lives are different. Our personalities are different. Time management is not one size fits all. And right. So do the experimentation and, work with a coach, find what works best for you and run with that. And just know that if you feel like, oh, I'm just not good at it because that's just not who I am, you can teach an old dog new tricks. Like you can learn something new, you can pick up something new. And yeah, you can manage your time well. You just need to find the method that works best for you.
Yeah. Wow. That was like probably a story that a lot of us face also, in the sense of procrastination can really become the thief
Yeah.
of whatever we're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
So, well, how did you make those changes? What were some actual tangible things that you did to make that transition from being the joke to the annoying friend to the hey guys, look at me now. I am a time management coach.
I know it's always so funny, especially like my friends who've known me the longest. They're like, look at you getting places on time. And helping others do the same. It's proof. And if I can do it, you can do it too. But that's a really great question. The tangible things, and there are a handful that I can share with you. One, first off, asking yourself, okay, why am I consistently late, and getting to the bottom of it. Is there a little bit of social anxiety there? Are you trying to squeeze in one more thing and one more thing that causes you to be late? Are you rationalizing whether or not you should be on time because you are shifting the importance of the engagement? When you understand like why you are being late for things, that can really help you get to the root. But I'll tell you, the real game changer was putting drive time in my calendar. And that's simple. That's something that anyone can do. So every week, and I've done this for years now, I sit down on Sundays as I'm doing my weekly planning session, which that is a total game changer. I could do an entire hour-long episode on that. Every week I sit down and look at the week ahead and I identify what meetings or what appointments are going to require me to drive somewhere. I drop my girls off at daycare every morning, and there is a block on my calendar before and after that represents that drive time. And the reason why I do that is because it holds visual space for that transition time, because that's the time that we often forget about that makes us late. We start to assume, okay, it took me 15 minutes to get there once. But that 15 minutes, there also was like no traffic and you hit every single green light and you think, oh, it's going to take me 15 minutes every time. And then you become consistently late. And so putting a realistic amount of transition time on your calendar keeps you from scheduling something else too close to that transition time. I know that when I do daycare drop off in the morning, that it's going to take me about 20 minutes to get back to the house. And that's if I don't go get coffee after. And so I know that to be on the safe side, I can't schedule anything to start like right at 9:00, right, that I need to create that buffer time there. And just doing that with, if you have a dentist appointment, put the drive time on your calendar before and after, so you don't accidentally schedule a phone call that bumps up too close to it, that then causes you to be late. So I would say that adding drive time, transition time to my calendar has been a huge game changer and being places on time. And then when it comes to managing my to-do list and how my goals factor into my day-to-day activities, transitioning from a handwritten to-do list to a task management system was the absolute game changer. I used to have a binder of loose leaf, and every morning I would wake up and I would write this 17-point to-do list. And then the next day I would carry things over that weren't done. And then the next day I would spend 20 minutes just rewriting a to-do list. And then from time to time, things would fall off the list because human error. I would accidentally forget to move something over, and then it was just gone. So using Trello, which is a free task management tool, super simple, transitioning my to-do list over to Trello was a game changer because it meant that things were taken out of my responsibility from writing things from day to day. I was no longer wasting that time because everything that I needed to do lived in Trello. And because there's an iPhone app, I was able to easily take my to-do list and reference things from wherever I was, as long as I had my phone with me. So those two things were huge. Adding drive time, transitioning to a project management system those were huge. And those are things that you can start doing today.
Love it. Such great advice. I absolutely love it. And, I agree. Trello is fantastic. It's also really great to manage projects and even work with teams. Trello is a wonderful tool out there to use. Now that we've like gotten so much wisdom from you and just like learned about, I just love the way it all started. It's just one of those like things that you see on TV and then you're just like, oh wow, you actually lived it. But then where you are today is also such a beautiful journey that you have had and the transitions that you have made. And it seems pretty organic also, the way things just kind of fell into place for you. But what are some of the legal challenges, if you've ever had any, or some things that you were like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that, in the past?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. So one of the, let's see, going back to the very beginning, I knew that I wanted to have some type of contract system set up from the get-go, just because I had heard so many stories of, so many horror stories about coaches or service providers who didn't have contracts in place. And then it caused their clients to, completely, I don't want to say take advantage of them, but because they weren't clear, because things were blurry, because the boundaries weren't there, because things weren't written out, they just found themselves in a mess. So I knew I wanted to prevent that from happening. So I purchased contract templates very early on and had a good friend who is an attorney, take a look at those and make sure that everything was locked up. And I'll tell you what, the part of my story that I didn't really go into during that trial and error phase was that I started a calligraphy business. During that trial and error, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I started a calligraphy business called The Welcome Note. Hand bespoke calligraphy and custom signage or something like that. It's been years. And I did not have solid contracts in place. I did not define how many rounds of edits or revisions. I did not define how errors would be handled. And so I learned a really important lesson when I had to take my printer and my printer scanner combo and my light box on vacation with me, because I was continuing to do edits for a bride because I had nothing in place to stop them, because I had not been thoughtful about setting up contracts. And so that was a very important lesson to learn that has, shaped how I now make sure that I have contracts in place for my time management coaching clients. I mean, it's not just about me, it's for them too. It helps them feel secure because they understand what the rules are or what the boundaries are. And it just makes communication so much easier because you can always point back to the agreement. It's the same thing with speaking engagements, making sure that I have a clear speaker's agreement in place that details exactly, what they can expect from me. That helps them feel taken care of and like they're working with a professional. And so I'd say that most recently, I'll tell you a secret. One of my big goals for 2022 is to write and submit a book proposal. It is my dream to become a traditionally published author with a book all about, modern time management and work-life balance for those of us who are like in the thick of it, us women, us parents who are trying to do it all. And I recently started working for an amazing company called Clockwise. And I wanted to make sure that creating this book proposal, that I would be the owner of my book proposal and the work that I would create. And so entering into this amazing opportunity with Clockwise, I made sure that it was very clear with the language within my offer letter, within my working agreement with the company, that I would still be able to operate my business, that I would still be able to write that book proposal and hopefully, in a few years, celebrate the publishing of that book. And a lot of times you can get very caught up in the excitement of a new opportunity. But I'm really grateful for the past experience, the past mistakes that I had made that really caused me to stop and make sure that the wording was very clear and to make sure that all parties were, I guess, happy with, with where the responsibility and where the ownership would lie.
Yeah. It's actually really important. I know we were kind of talking about this earlier. That's really important to have clarity on
Mm-hmm.
who owns what, especially in an employment situation and also in a contractor situation, because it's not very intuitive all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, oh, well, this is my name, my stuff, so it's mine. But no. And so it can be
Yeah.
yours also. And so it's so important that you actually included that in your contract. And for me, it's very important when I'm looking at contracts, like who owns what. Like that is one of
Mm-hmm.
the big things that I look at, because that is where the disputes sit. That's where a lot of the disputes are sitting in the ownership of intellectual property, or just actual tangible ownership of property, or even payment terms and things like that. But
Yeah.
really, it's just so important to define it, and so everybody's on the same page. There's no
Mm-hmm.
confusion.
Right. And you're not doing it. Like, let's say you are hiring a contractor, because I have hired in the past a freelancer, a virtual assistant who was creating things to assist me in my business, and making sure that it clearly defines what you create for my business is the property of my business. It's not being mean. It's not saying that they're not trustworthy. It's creating that clarity and making sure that everything is communicated clearly, just so that there are no questions later on. You're not being mean. It's not being harsh. You're being smart.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 110% agree with you. You have shared so much wisdom in such an easy way and understandable way. I just love it. I love talking to you. I love hearing about your experiences, because they're fun, but yet there's so much learning that's coming out of it, and teachable moments. So I just love that. What is one of your favorite books that you've read or that you think is so awesome?
All right. So, The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. If you have never read The One Thing, I would highly recommend dropping what you're doing and ordering it from Amazon right now, because I'll tell you that it absolutely changed my life. That book dives into the importance of focus, the importance of committing to a goal, to giving time to that thing that you're trying to grow and cultivate. It not only talks about focus in like high level terms, but it also teaches the concepts of time blocking and task batching. And anytime I begin to feel off, I don't want to say lost, but that just that feeling when you're pulled in so many directions, I listen to it again on Audible, or I pick it up and read it, and we'll just turn to a page that I've like completely highlighted or underlined. And it's a really amazing book. And if you are new to more intentional time management, if you want to like up your productivity game, I would highly, highly recommend starting with The One Thing, because it can change everything.
I'm gonna go order that right now. I haven't read it. So
yeah, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. Now, how can we reach out to you? How can everybody, connect with you and get some more time management skills from you?
Yeah, well, I would be so thrilled if you would tune into my podcast. It's About Time, a podcast about work, life, and balance. I have new episodes that drop every single Monday, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I love to include a mix of interviews with amazing, ambitious go-getters to find out how they're getting things done, as well as share really tangible tips that you can start implementing in your life right now. And if you are on Instagram, I would love for you to come find me over there. Anna D. Kornick is my handle. Let's be friends. Let's talk. Send me a DM. Send me your biggest time management questions, because I would love to talk to you about it. It brings me joy. So yeah, I would love to stay in touch.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure there will be people connecting with you, because you have really great tips on Instagram also, and your podcast is absolutely lovely as well. Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your journey and all of your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining Law Chat with Girja. I just love these kind of conversations that are motivating, inspiring, but truthful, raw, and honest about all of the challenges, all of the victories, all of the triumphs, picking ourselves back up again. I just can't think of a better way to get mentorship but Law Chat with Girja. If this was helpful to you or this was inspiring to you, please share the love. You can give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to this channel. You can also share this with your community by taking a screenshot and posting it on your social media and tagging GBP Law. When you do that, a lot more people will be able to see this video that not only benefited you, but also can benefit them as well. So let's share that love and let's share that inspiration. And if you want more information about what I do and other resources, go check out gbplaw.com or yourcontractbuddy.com. And I look forward to seeing you next time.